Welcome, everybody. Thanks for spending your early evening thinking about maps. I have created some different options centered around keeping Bremerton whole. Since we've heard a lot of testimony about that, and it was a great place to create options. So I just want to go through some slides, just make sure we're all on the same page from basic redistricting stuff, and then we'll get into the maps. I'll show a few maps for Congressional District, but it seems pretty obvious that the Kitsap Peninsula is going to stay in the 6th. I can't imagine them doing anything different, but I'll show you a little bit about that, and then we'll focus most of the time on legislative districts. As Lenny said, I'm Allison McCaffrey. I'm the Redistricting and Census Issue Chair for the State League, and I've been working on redistricting reform in Washington since about 2017. So when I started doing educational trainings for everybody on redistricting back at a time when people are like, oh, it's way too soon. So I can't believe it's finally here and we're testifying. So the thing that I'm going to do in the end, the goal is to get a map that we feel is representative of all the input that we've gotten from all these listening sessions, and be in consultation with our partners and lots of other organizations, and actually submit a complete state map as the League of Women Voters recommendation. But it's tough, right? I need everybody's help to try to do what the commission's doing in order to collect and kind of do that balancing act, with the idea being, if they don't do it that way, we can hold them accountable, right? Like how to try to ferret out some of those behind the scenes discussions and whatnot. But if we do this process ourselves, then one, we get to know the trade-offs that we're making, and we find ways to say, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be this other way. Knowing that there's millions and millions and millions of different options for maps. And the ultimate goal is to try to get the most number of people to feel like they can elect a person they want. So let's just jump to the slides. Feel free, we're a small group, feel free to ask questions out loud or drop them in the chat, whatever you're most comfortable with. Lenny, maybe you can just monitor the chat if I miss anything. And but yeah, this will be free form, go where you guys want it once I've run through some of my slides, just to get your juices flowing and thinking through how I was thinking through the issue, particularly in the LDs, of how do you keep Bremerton whole and where do you put the 23rd, 26th, and 35th. Okay, so here's my slides. Any questions so far? I'm happy to ask. Carolyn, good question. Yes, we do not have final census numbers. So what we're working off of right now, as everyone else, we're working off of, I'm using Dave's redistricting app. We're working off of 2019 American Community Survey numbers, which are pretty darn close, right? We're going to see some growth. If you look at the total delta in Washington State, it's about 300,000 difference between what 19 is saying and what they just came out with the total Washington State numbers. So you can imagine a 5 to 10% change. But the concepts that we're working with are golden. We are working with 2020 census blocks. So the line, like the minute little blocks that I can click on will be the actual blocks that you can click on, if that makes sense. So it's pretty darn close. And for our purposes, it gets your juices flowing. You can create sample maps and say, I want something like this. In the end, the line may move a little bit, but if they followed your advice, that map is good. Okay, so here we are, listening session or mapping party. for today. So we are every 10 years redrawing the boundaries. My focus is on congressional and legislative. Remember that following those, we will also do all of our local, so county, city, school districts, fire districts, they all get redistricted based on that new population. And remember, the main #1 golden rule is equal population per district. So it's tricky. You spend your time balancing and thinking, oh, 100 people live here and 1,000 people live here and doing all that kind of stuff. But that's the golden rule, is equal population in each district. Here's my redistricting 1, 2, 3. Your voting power starts with redistricting. And if we can create those maps where the most people feel like they can elect the person they want to represent them, that's good maps. Then those representatives work on the issues that we care about. And that's how we get our voting power to work for us. So here's where we are in the timeline. We did the census last year. The commission was appointed in January. They've been hiring staff. They put out their public testimony, at the beginning at least, of their public testimony schedule. So right now we're in this middle of public testimony. The good thing about having the delay in the census is they're not eager to actually draw maps yet, and they can focus on just hearing what people says. Martha's asking, yeah, equal population is all districts. So when you think of smaller or bigger districts, that's geographically. All of them have the same number of noses in them. But obviously in Eastern Washington, districts are bigger because people are more spread out. So it has to do with density. And it's amazing. Sometimes you'll click on an area, you think nobody lives there, and boom, it's 1,500 people that live in this teeny little block. So we're right here in the middle of our timeline. The commission has to finish its maps according to our constitution, state constitution, by November 15th. So it's going to be a really tight timeline between when they actually get the final numbers, when they show us some draft maps, and when they have to be final. We're really going to have to be on our toes. And then the new maps will be used in primaries in some areas as early as March of 22. Here's our commission. Now remember, there's 4 voting members, so you do have to cross party lines. We end up with 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, so you do have to cross party lines to vote for the maps. All of our maps have been decided unanimously in the past, at the last minute, but unanimously. And then Sarah Augustine is the non-voting chair, so she acts as the facilitator and negotiator and kind of the public face of the commission. And she's a dispute resolution executive director in her day job, so it seems like a good choice. And this is the first time the commission has had people of color on it, and we have 3. We have Brady Pinheiro Walkinshaw is Latino, April Sims is Black, and Sarah Augustine is a member of the Yakima Nation. And this is also a very young commission. I don't think any of them are over 60, and last time around nobody was under 60. So kind of a different viewpoint, I think. And it's showing in what they're caring about. Remember, these are the rules that they use when they're making the maps and that we will use. Equal population, obvious, #1. Even though we don't rank these, I have them numbered, but we don't rank these so the commissioners can use any of these at any point, but you are trying to keep them compact and not have little snaky ones. But sometimes maybe you'd want something that looks snakier. Sometimes you have things that jut out because that's the way the city was drawn. And that's #3, trying not to split city or county boundaries. Preserving communities of interest is a very interesting one. Mostly racial and ethnic groups, but it really can be anything. We do not define it in law, in our laws. It can be a geographic area that's on a coastline or on a river or something like that. We prohibit undue favoritism, trying to get the anti-gerrymandering, and then just we're trying to be fair, and we're trying to encourage electoral competition. Although typically our process has favored incumbents and not had a whole lot of electoral competition. We think because of the nature of the negotiation between the two parties. Yeah, I'm loving all the interest in communities of interest. Dave's redistricting app, the commission, representable, all these places you can put in your community of interest. It doesn't have to be a full district. We did get the official apportionment numbers from the Census Bureau. So there are officially 7,715,946 of us in Washington state, which makes just under 1 million more people from last go around. But because of all the other changes and how fast other states are growing, we keep our 10 representatives to the US House. There were some surprises. We basically, places like Texas and Florida didn't grow as fast as they had been growing in the beginning of the decade. So here's what happened in the reapportionment nationally. You've got Texas with a gain of 2, Florida with 1, North Carolina with 1. The oranges are subtracting 1. California tried hard not to lose that 1, but didn't happen. Okay, so tonight, these are just my caveats, right? These are all drafts. It's an iterative process. I'm trying to elicit feedback. There's my numbers of, we know that looking at what we've got now, there's about 6K more when we get in each district, when we get legislative district, when we get the final numbers, and there'll be about 30K more when we get the final numbers in the congressional districts. Which if you're trying to, get down to 5 people, right, it does shift the line in the end. But conceptually, we're gonna talk about it conceptually tonight with as much detail as we can. Just a reminder, the league is nonpartisan. Doesn't mean we can't say, oh, that leans this way or that leans that way. We're just not advocating for one party or the other. Yeah, absolutely, Martha. You can get these slides. I'll send out the slides and links to my sample maps so that you can dig into them more on your own. You can get if you don't already have an account with Dave's Redistricting app, you can get one. A 30K in the congressional districts compared to what we're looking at tonight. Okay, so let's just talk congressional districts briefly. Here's the current ones with 2019 data in them, right? So people have moved in and moved around and had babies and all that. So we're looking at the 6th district is about 30,000 people low. So it will have to grow geographically. You can see the places that are high are downtown Seattle and in the 7th, right? The 8th is high. We've got more people living in Issaquah, mainly eastern King County where that growth is. And the 9th and the 10th are also growing down in my area, especially. I'm in Tacoma area. So that's where we are now. And we have to balance it out by moving the lines around. And we have to think, how could we do things maybe differently?
Allison, I'm not sure I understand when it's a negative number. That means there's too few people in there, or
right? Too few people in that district, so it will have to grow geographically. That makes sense.
So then the 7th has too many people in it,
and that will have to shrink geographically.
Okay.
And these are all relative to each other, right? Because you take the total population, you divide by 10, and that's your target. That's your target population that you're looking for. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeannie, go ahead and unmute.
So the the congressional district across the country has the same population number?
Well, with some yes, with some caveats, right? If you have a state that has less than one congressional district's worth of people in it, say Wyoming, they still get one congressional district. But aside from those states with a single congressional district, every other congressional district will have the same, because we've taken the total population of the US and we've divided by the 435 members
seems-
of Congress. Of
That seems more fair. I don't know, to me. So, so other than, so how many, are there states that only have one district?
There's six of them that have less than one congressional district worth of people, which is fascinating when you think about DC and Puerto Rico coming in. They have more than one congressional district worth of people. In fact, Puerto Rico would have 4 congressional districts worth of people if it were to become a state.
Yeah.
Right? Roughly. So fascinating to think about these smaller states that, because we're split up in states, we're a federation, right? They get one seat in the House.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
okay.
there's one other point that I think we should make when we're talking about congressional districts, and that is that they're roughly similar, but the states, well, like Montana just gained enough population to get a second seat.
Get a second one.
Their representation will not be anything close to the 700,000.
Because they will get 2, but they can split up those 2 how they want. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not, they don't have 1.4 million. They're
Right.
over the, it's
Yeah,
it's adjusted a little bit for each of us, particularly the smaller states.
Right.
That's
right.
where it kind of gets.
It gets off in smaller states. And if you have the rounding is, the apportionment is all about the rounding, right? If you have one state that has a certain number 0.9 and another state that has a certain number 0.1, then the 0.9 guy gets the representation. And so there's a whole, and way back, Thomas Jefferson was arguing about how you do that kind of apportionment. I took a class that was like 2 hours long just on how to apportion. So fascinating. Yeah, Jeannie.
Since you pointed out Montana, because I was curious, how did they add 1? So when they do this 1 point something million, is it divided half? So if they only have, 1.1 million, so there'll be, 550 each, or
yeah, something like that. That's what.
Or is that
that's
7?
what he was saying is the smaller states, you can divide it up how you want.
Oh, it's up to them.
It's up to them. Yep.
Oh,
That's in our constitution, that each state gets to decide how they want to choose their representatives. Okay.
They don't have to have equal population in the.
They do. They have to split it up in equal population in their state, right?
Right.
Yeah, just like us, we have to take our 771,000 and divide by 10.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, divide 7 million and divide by 10, so we get our 771 each. Yeah. So you're right, Martha. Each of them have to take their state and divide it equally, or they could get sued for misrepresentation in that state.
Thank you.
So this was, if anyone joined me on my statewide mapping listening session, this was my congressional map that I proposed, mainly to see if the 4th and 5th going north and south would work and how that would look. So we can see how that is. Leslie, you had a question?
I kind of put it in the chat. So when the redistricting committee takes in place, I get the numbers and I get the balancing, but do they ever look into removing red line districts way back when?
Well, so it's interesting. Technically there's nothing to do with whatever the past red line districts are. I think it's really interesting to make sure you're not putting your district lines on those historic racial boundaries. We had lots of conversation in Yakima about their north-south avenue and how, oh, I forget which one it is, but oh, the 23rd has been the traditionally racial line between the Hispanic side of town and the white side of town. Don't put the line there. You're just going to make it worse, right?
Well,
So-
and I get that, but you know, so like I'm looking at Bremerton and we have red line districts that no one's even looked at or worked around. So I'm just curious how that's going to be moving forward.
Yeah, I would love to get more information about that so I can take that into my calculations, and we can talk about it more when we get to those districts. But if you have a clear indication of where those historically red line districts are, that would be great information for me to have. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of point out, this one was inspired a little bit by my data lenses project and putting the 6th all along the Pacific coast. It does mean it comes into Tacoma a little bit just by the numbers. So here's Kitsap, right? And it has to come, right now it comes into Tacoma a little bit too. I think I left this the way it is. Another way, I was just showing the Southwest Washington folks, Clark County folks, you could cut the 6th off at Grays Harbor County, and then you'd come into Tacoma a lot more. So that's one thing that you guys could weigh into about the 6th is, would you like the 6th? Because most likely Kitsap's going to be in the 6th, right? So would you like the 6th to include more of Tacoma, more urban folks in your district? Or would you like the 6th to stay Olympic Peninsula and Pacific Coast? I think that's really important from a congressional district, which way would be better, particularly people who live in an urban setting when most of the 6th is more rural. Questions about the congressional district? Lenny, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I had one question. When you were looking at, when we had the whole state map,
Yeah.
Having lived in east of the mountains when it was divided this way instead of from border to the river, like it is now, those numbers would be flipped. The 5th would be in the north and the 4th would be in the south. So you might, as you're drawing those, keep that in mind. People in Spokane in particular really have always thought of themselves as being in the 5th. So they would not want to see their number changed. And Yakima feels the same way, in Benton Franklin. So anyway.
Which is interesting because Okanagan and I was talking with the Colville tribe area and Omak area, and they're like, we want to be in the 5th or something, or we want to be in the 4th or something like that. I couldn't remember. I went back and forth on which way to do that. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, mostly they don't want to be divided down the middle like they are now.
Right.
Which,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's crazy. But yeah, you might make a note of that, because I'm pretty sure that Yakima and the Spokane people in particular, and probably the people in Tri-Cities, are going to say, wait a minute.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay.
But I like that division, by the way. I like it oriented that way.
It's interesting that it's interesting, different dynamic. Okay. So let's move on to the legislative districts. Here's our current ones, and forgive me that the colors have switched between this map and the ones you'll see later. But you see that dynamic of Eastern Washington districts are larger geographically, right? And then we get into Puget Sound and we get our smaller ones. Let's look at the biggest movers. The 3 we're talking about tonight, we don't have in this list, but you can see we've got lots in downtown Seattle as the biggest movers, right? This is that same dynamic, Martha, you were asking about. The ones that are positive numbers means they have to shrink geographically, and the ones with negative numbers means they have to expand geographically. So we've got some, some in Central, some in Puget Sound, kind of things that are shrinking. Central Spokane is shrinking, or is not growing as fast, right? It's all relative. Okay, so now you guys know these by heart. I'm the one that had to get educated on where the lines are. So we see the current lines in these maps, purple. Yeah, there's too many different purples. 23rd, dark purples, 26, lighter purple, and grayer purple. Lighter purple is the 35th right here.
Mhm.
I should have put the labels on these better.
The dark purple must be the 26th.
We've got the, yeah, dark purple. 26 is down here on the bottom. Right?
And
The-
across, that's the 24th.
24th is kind of the grayish purple. I don't know why they put them so close in this map. Okay. So this map, I can turn on and off the legal city limits. So that's what you're seeing, where the city limit lines are, which unless you know the cities, it does get kind of confusing because like, I think this is Tracyton up here, and then this becomes Bremerton. Like what's this here, this little triangle? Is that a city of its own?
Port Orchard? Could it be?
To the oh, sorry.
Could it have been Port Orchard?
No,
Yeah.
that's,
those kind of things.
I think it's an unincorporated part of the area. So in other words, you got Bremerton and then that's unincorporated.
Incorporated there.
So
right?
yeah.
So it's interesting. You kind of have to know the details a little bit. Okay. So I thought this would be helpful because this is actual Bremerton city limits. And I like the way Google Maps highlighted it. And you can see it's wiggly, right? This
Yeah, you've got up at the Rocky Point is unincorporated.
Okay.
And then you've got outside near West Hills is unincorporated. So we've got little pockets in Bremerton that are not even
That are
part of
not
the city.
part of the city. Yeah. Which clearly you're not going to, you can't have islands in your districts, right? So, and interestingly, these chunks here, like this one down here by the Eland Gardens, right? 7 people live in that chunk, right? So it looks big, but it's not that consequential. And you've
And
got,
that's city of Bremerton as well. So that's what's really weird about it.
yeah. So I was like, how do you incorporate that? But, oh, okay, 7 people live there. It's not, even though the land is technically Bremerton, it's not as consequential as it looks geographically. Same with all the stuff that's not on this map that's technically city of Bremerton, but it's the mountains. And so we don't have a whole lot of people living to the
Yeah, we have forest land in Bremerton, and then Shipyard is in Bremerton, but a lot of their numbers sometimes don't correlate with, because we never really know what's who's living on the shipyard and in the military bases.
Yeah. So that's interesting because they would get those. If you're stationed there, then you get counted there. But you've got a lot of transient people probably coming through. Hard to know.
That piece that's up above Gorst is the watershed, and no one lives there.
There we
There's
go.
a huge piece that has no population at all.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah,
that?
so-
That's well, you probably can't see my arrow, but
You can only see mine. So go ahead, describe, and I can.
well, this kind of piece that's surrounded by the city, but it's a different.
This gray.
Yeah, what is that?
What's this? Is this a park that's unincorporated or something?
That could be West Hills.
What's that?
West Hills, where if you know where West Hills is, past that area along the freeway is unincorporated.
Yeah.
How can they do that? I mean, it's surrounded by the city.
That's part of your old red line district. Some of our lower income African American communities live in that area.
Wow, it seems like it should be illegal.
Well, it's unincorporated, and the city of Bremerton does services to that particular area a lot for fire and police because the sheriff takes too long.
Wow.
Yeah, and that it's surrounded. Okay, we can come back to this map if we need to. So, and here's
That's nice. That's very helpful.
So I decided I would just
better.
quickly draw these in so that you could see the lines and the line, because none of my other maps will be quite as clear as this one, right?
Mhm.
So this is how they're drawn currently.
So when you look at this, where the 23rd is on that side where Sheridan is, that used to be part of the 35th. So think of it in that way 10
Wow.
years ago.
That it came over.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so now I thought, well, let's look at these for a moment. This is a heat map of percentage of people of color. So we know we've got that area we were just talking about, kind of north Bremerton and whatnot. More detail in here, I'm sure you guys could tell me more specifics about if there's.
Well, what does that mean, Allison? I mean, the darker, how much of it people of
So-
color?
Oh, so these darkest blue are 40, if I'm remembering right from my data, are 40% people of color. So you can see there's not much dark blue in these. Over 40%, I think, was our darkest block.
And that's Bremerton, right? Because
This,
we're pretty white up in North Kitsap.
yeah, look, you've got, but as a percentage, right? You've got some Native Americans in here as a
Yeah.
percentage of each of those and whatnot. So you've got a little bit of color, no pun intended,
Color.
in some of those. And this one over here, military base, I think.
That's the submarine base.
Submarine base. So maybe just because it's military, there's a higher percentage. Yeah, so interesting. You can go to the data lenses project if you're interested in these, and you can zoom in to your heart's content if you want to look at these. But that, just to give us a sense, this one on the right hand side, I was just reminding us where the actual reservations are. So it doesn't really come into our decision, but we want to make sure we don't split actual reservations in our ethic, at least at the league. And that's one of our priorities, is not to split any known reservation lands and to try to incorporate the diaspora of reservations into a district as well. Okay, so I know you guys want to get to the meat of it. Remember, we're doing 49 districts. They're going to have about they are going to have 57,000 people in them each. That's from the total population number that we know. And we're talking tonight about 23rd, 26th, 35th. My three options I'm going to show you are Bremerton, most of Bremerton in each one of those. It was interesting challenge it for some of them. But I kept in mind communities of color, not splitting cities, and minimizing the county splits, which was really hard in some cases. Okay, so here we go. Option one, most of Bremerton in the 26th. So I found this way. See these little black lines? Those are the current lines. And then where the color changes is my new lines, right? So it would take that part of Sheraton, right? And it would stick it in the 26 and would grab most of Bremerton here. This is actually Bremerton city limits, right? This line I used between the purple and the green there. Okay, so that was kind of the impetus. Then I have to make the numbers balance, right? So it ends up looking like this. You've got quite a big 26 goes all the way down Key Peninsula, right? The 23rd then, because you've taken out some of the population from Bremerton, right? So it has to go, I made it go all the way to the Kitsap County line. And then, but I had to get some kind of the 35th, you can see on this one on the right, the 35th had to eke up and grab some of this population here to make.
So we still got Bremerton in the 26th and 35th then, or is it still in the 23rd as well?
Well, the city, what I was doing was the city limits of Bremerton are all in the 26th.
Even outside near the 35th area?
But that's where you guys have to tell me what makes sense or not, right? I'm just going by city limits. In in these areas here, right? It's not, nothing's technically Bremerton, but to pick up enough population, I had to do some interesting things along the 26th and the 35th.
So
boundary.
when you bring the Key Peninsula area into the Bremerton area, the big concern has always been the area medium income because of Bainbridge Island. But when we bring in Key Peninsula, that doesn't change the area medium income to what Bremerton really represents, if that makes sense.
So is it lower or higher? I'm just trying to.
So I think bring us in the Key Peninsula, I think that that particular area is totally out of touch of what Bremerton is, or Kitsap County.
More rural, higher house prices maybe in Key.
Yes,
You
yes,
get
more
garbage.
higher prices.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question, Allison?
yeah.
So that part of the 35th that you brought in to the 26th, or
Yep.
maybe others know this, are there cities in that beige area?
They're little.
They're small cities, right? Sometimes some are incorporated, but
Is
they're
Belfair in there? I can't tell where.
Belfair is not, because Belfair's over here. So look on the left-hand one, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's close to,
Isn't it down here somewhere?
Yeah.
Kind of halfway down this inlet.
So is there any way to know the number of people from the 35th that are impacted by this?
Absolutely, absolutely. We could compare current to what I've got, right? Like who gets moved, right?
Mhm.
Clearly. So remember these little small little lines are the existing ones, right? So you've got all this little green that moves from the 35th to
The 26th.
the 26th. You've got the other green on the other side that moved from the 23rd to the 26th, right? So you could do all that kind of comparison.
so who lives here in the 35th to the left of the 26th? This,
What do you mean, Catherine?
Does someone live in this area? Is that what you're asking, Catherine?
Yeah, I think we're asking the same thing, just trying to figure out, how many people is this impacting from the 35th? And
yeah, I'm thinking Union and Belfair are maybe in that area.
Only be in the 35th.
It looks like Glenwood is in that area.
Let me jump to the days redistricting. We can answer our own question.
Well, the one section that goes to the 23rd would be Holly and Seebeck. The people that are in the city of Bremerton, like Connie, who's near Kitsap Lake, they would move to the 26th out of the 35th. So I don't know if that,
What about McCormick Woods?
well,
gonna
that's
be in the
part of the
22nd.
26th now. That's
No, it's been part of the 35th, I thought.
No.
I don't think so. Well, I don't know.
Let me make these colors a little darker for us. I'm always fighting the having the colors, but also being able to see the map underneath. Okay. So we were at,
That's Port Orchard, Catherine. And that's probably McCormick Woods. That would all be in the 26th.
yeah,
No,
currently.
but I'm talking about the yellow to the left of the,
Well, what particular community are you concerned about?
well, I'm just wondering if
Oh.
that's where Belfair, that's what I thought.
Well,
And-
Belfair is in Mason County. That's not in Kitsap County.
Right, but
It's already in the 35th.
yes. And it always has been, but somebody was asking where Belfair was, and that's where I thought it was, in that area.
so they would move to the 26th.
So Sunny Slope is part of McCormick Woods and it splits it.
Okay,
I
Oh,
have
that's-
that. I do have that split.
And McCormick Woods, I think, would be in the 35th.
yeah, and it has been, and they've not been happy about that.
Well,
Oh, because they consider themselves more urban?
Well, they're part of Port Orchard now.
They're in the city of Port Orchard. you're saying.
Yes,
Okay.
So is that this area where I've got it? No, this is the current boundary now between the 26th and the 35th, this little black line, that's the current boundary. And then where the color switches is what I did differently. Is that making sense at least? So you guys would propose that maybe this area here that we were zoomed in on should be in the 26th with the rest of Bremerton and Port Orchard.
With the rest of Port Orchard, yeah.
With the rest of Port
Yeah.
Orchard. Got it. Okay, so let's go back to the other one and I'll show you some other options. Okay, so that was option 1. So option 2 is where Bremerton is in the 23rd and we bring it, this one was crazy. So we have to, you can see where we bring the 23rd all the way down. We grab all of Bremerton, even out to, city limits, right? But that's got so much population. The only way I could figure was to lose Bainbridge Island, 23rd, which I know is not going to fly, right? But I couldn't think of any other way to get the population. So then it ends up looking like this.
Oh, you're going to put Bainbridge in the 26th?
Right. So how do you balance? So you'll see in the next one what I did differently for when Bremerton is in the 35th, right? Because the peninsula, the Kitsap Peninsula is such a peninsula. It's such a nice boundary, right?
Right.
Then what do you do? So I know, but this
Okay,
is,
so you know that the chair of the Budget Committee in the Senate, Christine Rolfes, lives on Bainbridge
Bainbridge.
Island.
oh yeah.
And
Oh,
so,
I've already redistricted the Senate majority leader out of his district.
okay.
Oh, believe me, I've done everything. So,
Oh, you're going to be so popular, Allison.
but that's the whole point, is that we're not trying to look at incumbents, right? We're trying to look at communities. And of course, we're not going to be naive and turn in a map that does too much of that craziness, right? But this is the challenge of balancing the population, right?
Right.
Kitsap is such an easy, natural barrier line, right? That you get this little flame, but then how do you pick up, because we have all of Bainbridge population in here now, Bainbridge, all of Bremerton, Bainbridge Island, there's 24,000 people that live on Bainbridge Island, right? So,
Right.
so how do you balance that? So you can see the 35th then snakes up all the way along the eastern shore in this,
Oh,
this
no.
which
Well, and there's no way to connect, like, you can't go from Bainbridge Island to Port Orchard unless you do a giant loop.
right, you'd have to go all the way around and
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know. If you could have thought of something else, I'm happy to do another option and send
This
it.
is horrible.
Right, which is good. It's good to have an option that you're like, nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Option A is much better.
Yeah. Which is why I ended up doing that for the statewide map, right? Okay, here's the other challenge, right? What if we put all of Bremerton in the 35th? We have that same issue, I think, with the rural population in Mason County, right? And then Bremerton, and balancing those differences. But this is kind of what it looks like. Again, the small black line is the current district lines, and the change in color is the new trying to propose.
Wait, can
If
I
you
ask?
put, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
If you put Bremerton in the 35th, what becomes of the 26th area?
Right, so yeah, exactly.
Is it moving
So it's
part of the 35th as well, or?
right. So it has to, well, I made it has to grow somewhere, right? Because we just took all that population that was Bremerton. So I made it grow. It's kind of a little bit south and picking up the islands here off of where I live. That's Fox Island and Anderson Island. And then I made it grow west until I got enough population.
So this is question about somebody that testified that was from Bremerton said that generally speaking, she lives in Bremerton and she considered herself more a part of Silverdale, like Silverton or Silverdale and Bremerton sort of going together within the group that's here. Is that a consensus kind of thing to keep those cities close to one another?
Silverdale and Bremerton, which is kind of,
So I'm the unit leader and I have Central Kitsap and Bremerton. But when it comes to trying to have meetings and find issues that we share and we're concerned about, they're just different. It is unincorporated and they have tried multiple times to become a city and they always vote it down. So they don't want that incorporation where they have taxes and central government and things like that. So in terms of political views, they don't share ideology.
So Silverdale doesn't share that with Bremerton?
No.
Not politically. I mean, they're just someplace else. in
I
their-
think Silverdale is more conservative than Bremerton. If anything.
Definitely, it's no taxation. That's one of the
Yes,
things
yes,
that
that's true.
defeats attempts to incorporate is it's against regulation. They don't want to have, a government dictating the rules of what they can do.
But they want all the investment.
Oh, right.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's good to understand because I mean, coming like from heading over to Silverdale, Bremerton, if you spend time there, but you're from further out, you don't really, I mean, I know they're different areas, but I don't know politically if it sounds like it makes sense to keep them separate, or does it?
Yeah, yes, it does. And I think, Leslie, you can chime in here. It seems to me that Bremerton has more of a relationship with Port Orchard
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah, and I would say that's true because with our foot ferry between Port Orchard and Bremerton and our commuters and stuff, we have a lot of commuters that come from the Port Orchard area.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say that in terms of Silverdale, it is an interesting population because it's not incorporated, but a fairly large number of people that kind of are in the area between Bremerton and Paulsbo. Part of that is Silverdale. They actually often identify themselves more with Paulsbo. So keeping them in the 23rd actually probably makes sense.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. The people I know that live what you're talking about, Lainey.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think, the reason I like option 1 the best is because I can't quite see Mason County and Bremerton. Bremerton, as Catherine mentioned, has a lot more in common with Port Orchard, and probably to a certain extent more with the Gig Harbor and Tacoma than
The people in my unit who are in the 35th don't feel that they're heard. They don't feel that they're listened to. They don't feel represented. And those are the people in Chico Way, Holly, Seabeck, that area. Now these are people involved with the league. They're not necessarily the rural population that lives in the unincorporated area, but the frustration for the people that I know is that they're not represented. And I would say as a unit leader for the Central Kitsap people, the closer they are to North Kitsap, the more they affiliate with Paulsbo and feel a part of that. The further south you get, the more they affiliate with Bremerton. So it's kind of a nebulous line. It's not really, I don't know. But there's a lot of very wealthy people that live in unincorporated areas in the northern part of Central Kitsap that do feel more close to Paulsbo, Bainbridge Island, more, their sense of self is more in that culture, I guess.
I think so. It seems to me that it's like Lenny was saying, it's that first option with Bremerton in the 26th. I suppose we'd have to look more closely at the details, but that seems to be the best.
Yeah, so it sounds like we could play with that a little bit. Let me just show you some of the statistics that these options.
Oh, this is great stuff. Thank you.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, and you'll have these slides so you can study it a little bit more. But it was interesting to try to look at the statistics from a people of color, Hispanic, and then the partisan swing on this is subject to a lot of things because Dave's redistricting uses statewide races, and we know that the legislative races are different than the statewide races. But this is what Dave's saying by these options. So you can see we liked option 1.
I never knew that the 35th was a swing district.
It isn't.
It isn't, but that's why the statewide races are swaying it wrong. This is what Dave's redistricting says, but
Yeah, the options would give it a swing district.
What's the POC? People of color.
Yeah. So if you're trying to increase voter representation of people of color, have we done that in any of these options?
Option 2, definitely not. It seemed like it's more it's not an evenly proportion.
Right. We've tried to pack more into the 23rd by doing that, picking up all of the people of color that are in Bainbridge proper, right? Because we get that 22, almost 23%. But we didn't like that at all because we had to exile Bainbridge Island.
That's also why you got more people of color. Exiling Bainbridge Island was keeping a lot of white folks.
Percentage-wise, right? That makes total sense, right? I hadn't thought of that. Option 1, we do increase the 26th percentage of people of color, a little bit in the Hispanic. So that's interesting because we're picking up some of the other populations farther south, right, than just Bremerton. So there you go. That's the data as it's shown. And I'm happy.
Can I ask a question, Allison?
Yeah.
I know we were looking at 23rd, 26th, and 35th and Bremerton in one area. Have we thought just moving into a different district? Because there are some parts that we were close to. I was trying to remember your map that you had a different district. Have we thought of bringing in another district for that split as well, as far as for the numbers and
bringing in? I don't.
Because I was looking at the map. If I recall, I saw another district.
Yeah, let me go back
Further
to the
south.
This is the live
Maybe
map.
was it? Maybe.
This is the live map. Right?
34th.
Okay.
So you've got West Seattle and Vashon.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
You could pick up, right?
So that's the 34th. Okay.
Right.
And then
No.
is that the 36? What's the 36
36
there?
is Magnolia and right
Seattle.
the water. This is all Seattle. If we can zoom in.
Okay.
Right?
So when you look at the 23rd, 26th. Yeah, so the
that's
34th is the closest to us.
No.
Right. You could decide
Yeah.
Vashon was going to go west instead of east, but there's so much history.
Yeah.
Leroy, Vashon
Yeah.
Ferry, like all that kind of stuff.
Okay. I was just trying to remember what other districts were in the
Yeah.
nearby.
Like, you mean like connecting Port Orchard and Bremerton to Tacoma more? That further south?
Oh, that could be a possibility too.
So you could remember the thin lines are the current and the color differentiation are my new ones. And the darker lines are the county lines. Yeah.
So you've got Gig Harbor in the 26th, but yet Tacoma's in the 27th. But you know, like Gig Harbor, to me, I don't know, seems like
we could take the
Yeah.
25th
Same
and throw it
county.
over.
I always thought that was funny, but Gig
I
Harbor is part of Pierce County.
It
yeah, I
is.
know. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because here's the county line is up here, right?
Right. Mhm.
So there's all this stuff. And honestly, I mean, I live right on the Tacoma side of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. And I go to Gig Harbor to go to Home Depot sometimes and all that kind of stuff. So there is an argument that this is part of the same community across the bridge. Yeah, so I couldn't find any other solution besides these 3 districts in some variation.
But it sounded like, and as we were looking at it, that it was, of course, it's all in the details. It was just in that area between the 26th and kind of the 35th that we weren't quite sure about where exactly those. You'd have to look at
Yeah, so what would you
population.
do? And we can, this is the fun of it is my crazy neuroses, right? The fun of it is I can actually take these, let's open up the 35th. And I can say, okay, oops. Okay, let's try it, right? We take these and we say, oh, we want all these to be in the 26. These are by precinct, and I can go smaller if I want to, but it's easier to just do it by precinct, right? Here's all these. We were close to equal. So now we've got about, make sure I've got those. Looks like about 4,000 people in this kind of western Port Orchard area.
And that would be the McCormick Woods area that would prefer that, I think. But
I don't think the people that live in that area of Port Orchard would feel affinity for the 35th.
Right.
no, they don't. They never have.
It's not a rural, particularly rural.
Right. Here's our county boundary right here, right?
Mhm.
And it's so, I mean, I was on a call with the Mason County auditor and hold on, you guys, I gotta change my lighting.
So the big deal for the people in that area is the economic development that's come into the Port Authority, Bremerton Port Authority, which is, they brought in a huge Amazon complex, and there's all kinds of economic power that's going into the 35th. And right now you're incorporating that into the 26th, and I think there'd be a hue and cry over that.
Yeah, I
one.
wouldn't go that far.
So
Leave the airport.
leave
Although
the
the
airport
airport,
and
but
take
the
the
airport is part of Bremerton now, isn't it?
Yes,
Well, it's
Yes.
the Bremerton Port
Yes, it
Authority.
is part of Bremerton.
so I can let's turn on the city line so you can see that.
But the 35th would feel robbed, I'm sure.
Mm.
If we had this much, so this is the Bremerton line, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
well, are you still keeping, Allison, that population, equivalent population?
No.
No, we've just messed it up, right? We have, now I've got to figure out the 26th has 4,000 too many people, right? And the 35th is going to have roughly 3,000 too few, right? So we got to figure out where to balance. Remember, this is like billiard balls in a fishbowl, right? If you move one, you got
Right. And
all the others have to shift.
have you
So
heard
that's
from
the-
people in the Olympia area that want the 35th to go away?
Right. This, I mean, the 35th is problematic because it's got all this stuff in north of Olympia and wraps. See, I've got it going all the way down to Rochester to pick up enough people. Yeah, it's a crazy district.
Yeah.
Plus all the Key
Wow.
Peninsula one, right?
We can't really do that, can we? We can't eliminate a legislative district.
No, you gotta have 49. But I mean, if you're gonna do radical things, right? Could you split Mason County and then, do something else? It's hard because our concepts of all these districts, especially people like Catherine who've been advocating in the district for so long, right? To switch your brain. to doing the districts radically differently is hard. So we
Yeah.
have this natural bias towards the districts we know. But then we know that there's inequities, and so that's what we're trying to balance. Yeah, so we maybe, okay, so just my engineering brain, I'd probably, where would I go? Maybe some of this more rural area, we could pick up a few more people. I don't know. Where would we pick up more people for the 35th, right?
What about some of the 23rd on the lower edge of it?
So
Yeah,
in
right in there.
the Kitsap boundary here.
Yeah.
That's already there. I mean, that's not changed.
That's like
currently-
Seabeck, and they've never liked being in the 35th.
And there's not a heck of a lot of population for this land. If you look over on the far right of my map,
Yeah.
that whole land has 291 people in it, right?
So that
So-
doesn't help, huh?
Right, it's not that, there's some coastal people there, so that's a big one. So, right, you could probably put this area back in the 35th now that we've taken the kind of west Port Orchard, put it in the 26th. That's possible. Let's try that. So we could do,
I don't think that's,
Are you guys feeling the earthquake when she moves the lands around?
cocoon, cocoon.
I'm feeling political earthquakes.
Yeah, I think
Is
that's
that
an
rich
issue.
enough?
So you can see, right? I'm going to save this one as option 4, right? As we do. You guys are going to advocate for what you want in your area. So this is the whole thing. What's helpful? Has this been helpful, and what more would be helpful?
So for the people that are from the 35th that are on this call, what is it? What are their priorities? There are all the people from the 35th currently in Bremerton. Are they part of that corner?
the part that she just gave back to Mason County is a part where my unit members are unhappy. So
Okay.
What is that part, Maureen?
that's Holly and
Holly and
Seabeck
Seabeck.
and so it's
That's Seabeck. We've got captured Seabeck, because I'm sure you're right about that.
Further north.
Yeah, I Seabeck should go back where it was, I think, personally.
Want Seabeck in the purple?
Yeah,
Yeah, they won't be happy in the 35th.
no.
I'm sure.
Where is it? Is that?
Well,
The
somebody's
original-
not going to be
yeah.
happy.
Yeah, gotta just minimize the amount of.
The
unhappy.
original was much more in keeping with what,
Oh, see, this is
They
Seabeck
hope-
Road.
right?
Keep that in the 23rd, but
Okay.
how about down farther south? Keep that in the 23rd.
Okay, so that's the 23rd. Then we've got Holly, right?
Oh,
That was the 291 people.
Okay.
Crosby, right? This is a forest land, so there's not a whole lot of people in this part. Then we get into Belfair.
Mhm.
Well, Belfair, I think, fits in the 35th.
Yeah.
Oh, so why does it say Belfair here and Belfair up here by the airport? Is that Belfair Airport or something?
No.
No.
Well, I don't know where the boundary comes, but the airport, you have the airport and the industrial area, and that's all in the city of Bremerton, I
Bremerton.
believe.
Yeah, here, this is the Bremerton line.
Yeah. So
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know, you guys. Not easy decisions, right?
I may be the only one in the 35th.
Yeah. Where are you, Connie?
I'm just by Kitsap Lake. I'm trying to see it there. My only thing I was just going to add, and Maureen sort of mentioned it, it's just that, you know, I'm so close to Bremerton, and that most of my representatives do most of their work for communities like Shelton and Belfair. You know, they're more Mason County centric.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that's, so I don't know, maybe we just need different representatives, or we need to advocate better. I don't know, but we seem to.
Well, I'm gonna
But-
turn off city line
Connie, with this option, would you be in the 26th or the 23rd, or would you?
Tell where- let me-
I've been trying to follow it and I'm getting confused, so I'm not sure.
Okay,
This is near Kitsap Lake. I think if you can probably get to
this
that.
Kitsap Lake, this guy.
Right there. Yeah, you had it on there.
Kitsap Lake is part, if you're drawing the lines to include the city of Bremerton, then Connie would be, she's in the city of Bremerton. So it's
Right.
the seventh, what do you call it? Our city council, the seventh
Right.
commissioner. is-
District 7.
So
District seven.
we do kind of need to, Kitsap Lake is in Bremerton.
Yeah.
So we do kind of need this little finger.
Yeah, that probably should stay in the 26th then.
Right, if we're trying to keep all of,
Yeah, I would think so. But that's not so much the issue of population between the 23rd and the 26th. We could probably balance those fairly easily.
right, so that's just deciding your lines, where you're gonna break Bremerton city lines or not.
Yeah.
In between
But
these
it's getting enough population in the 35th is
Right.
what I'm gathering.
two.
That
Right, and
that's the issue.
when you don't take it in the north, then it pushes the problem to Olympia.
What's to the west of the 35th?
Yeah, I wanted to know that.
Oh, so if it's so, as a mapper, it's so nice to put Mason County all in the 35th. But you've got, so here's Mason County lines, right?
Right.
So you've got Grays Harbor. Let's turn in on our. Sorry, I know it's hard to watch someone else. Right, you got Grays Harbor and what's this, Jefferson?
Yeah.
Right, and it's just so rural all through here, right? There's not, if we look at this population swaths, right? There's 1,200 people, but they all live right here, right? Nobody lives out in this western part.
Yeah, Alistair,
Yeah,
Alistair is saying that they need to leave. Did you have any questions before you head out? I noticed you made a comment about McCormick Woods, which is useful.
mhm.
Oh,
Did you have a
well, not so much a question, it's just some shared experience. So my folks used to live in the McCormick Woods area before they skipped off to Florida. And I remember remarking with my mother that there were actually a lot of people of color living in the area. And that as the community is going to grow, it's going to continually get more and more diverse. I know that every time I see those fences around those waterways, it makes me a little sad because there are beavers and a lot of wildlife in that area. But it is really refreshing to see that the Port Orchard area is growing more diverse. And I don't think it's quite the same as Bremerton, although somebody else can fact check me on that. But I do have high hopes for the area becoming, I guess, more representative of this country as a whole, really.
So it would actually make sense to squeeze that into the 26th if we're putting Bremerton in the 26th.
I think so. I do think so, because I think that there are a lot of families moving to that area, and like I said, a lot of people who are immigrating to this area, and people of color, Asian Americans and Indian Americans that I've seen, have a lot of small children, and that's going to bode well for, I think, the district as a whole, if that's a part of Bremerton's district.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, and with that, I got a jet. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
What do we want to, I guess what I'd like to do, if I can get better at using Dave's maps, is play around with it and see if this has been very helpful. I think that's what we seem to be focusing on, is maybe moving this Bremerton into the 26th and maybe futzing around with the edges and seeing if there's a way to get enough population in the 35th. But from what I'm hearing from you, Allison, is that Olympia, they don't like the 35th either, right?
35th either. That's where Mason County people need more folks.
I see.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I'm
Mason County, wait, we can switch it. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if there's some way to get really outside the box here and move the 35th way to the west and pull in, isn't there some stuff down closer to the Columbia that you need to take people out of? I'm almost wondering if you could push Grace Harbor, and I can't remember the district. Is that the 19th down there?
The 19th. This pink one that you're seeing here is the 19th.
And then what's
And
north?
the 24th are the two Olympic.
That's
ones.
all the 24th there,
Yeah.
Aberdeen and stuff? Wow, I've heard a lot of complaints.
Look at how big the 24th is.
Yeah, about
know,
the
it's
size of the 24th.
A
I
big
wonder,
park in the middle.
yeah, well, that's part of the problem, but I wonder if you could push the 35th to the west and pull it.
Pick up some of this Grays Harbor, like Eastern Grays Harbor.
Yeah, or, the other district that's needing attention, as I recall, is further south along the river. So I just don't know,
We kind of had a concept of when we were saying, well, push the 27th west, right? If we just did everything clockwise around the center, you might be able to balance. If we push the 27th west, then the 26th gets what we need.
Where's the 27th? Which
The
one?
27th is this pink one. It's Tacoma.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So Allison,
Careful, we're going to redistrict out the Speaker of the House. I don't
So
actually
Allison,
know where she
do we-
lives, but-
do we have to have a decision by a certain time frame to the commission?
Well, it's all about what you're going to testify, right? So you guys will have a next opportunity to testify in July. They're going to have another meeting by congressional district, right? So there'll be another 6th one in July. Although you can turn in written anytime, right? So it's really about between now and October when they're going to publish their preliminary maps. It's kind of getting some community consensus and getting loud about that consensus. That would be the, now that we've kind of targeted this McCormick Woods, Western Port Orchard as a challenging area, it'd be great to, go have a community meeting there and ask, right? That would be the amazing part, is if we could do some of that advocacy to say, here's the challenge we're seeing, right?
Right.
Allison, at some point, I wonder if you could, step back and just let us know how this is working in some of the other areas. I'm kind of wondering about, like, looking at some of the other congressional districts, like what would that be? That's the one that's south of us. Is that the 3rd? That's
10th.
So the 3rd is like Clark County and Southwest Washington, right?
yeah.
The 10th is.
And then the 10th is Olympia, and the
Right.
one that snuck in the mayor.
Okay.
So what did you hear from people out west of the 35th? What were their issues? Would they want to include part of the 35th?
No.
Likes
35th is like the no man's land district. Nobody wants to be there but Mason County.
Well, except if you look at the rural character and the forestry angle, there actually is a lot of connection between the 24th and the 35th.
Yeah, I like
The question would be if you took bites out of the 24th,
right.
where would you expand it?
Well, right now the line is right at the Aberdeen Monsanto line, right? And they were clearly playing with the populations there, because Monsanto is this little finger that goes up into the 23rd, but it stayed in the 19th. They needed there's about 6,000 people that live in Monsanto, right? So I don't know if you I don't know. That's tricky there in the Aberdeen, Hoquiam, Aberdeen, Monsanto.
Yeah.
Which
You put the 24th and 35th together and then split them across horizontally? Nobody'd be happy.
24th and yeah.
35th together
Yeah.
and then split them horizontally. You're not, the problem is you're breaking up 2 counties then, and
Yeah, which, yeah, you're trying to minimize that.
yeah.
Yeah,
You've got
honestly,
the Olympic
past-
manners.
the past commissioner says they work from the outside of the borders of the state out to in, right? Which is why the 20th ends up being a stepchild too, because it
Oh,
just
yeah,
gets, it just
crazy.
gets, because you work out to in, right? So then whatever's left over becomes the 20th district. I did the same thing when I was doing my maps. It's like, oh, that is not
The
good.
maps have to be handed in by the middle of August, so Allison
Middle of
does have some
I do have a deadline, yes.
deadline.
But I mean, that doesn't mean whatever I'm doing from a statewide solution doesn't mean you guys can't advocate locally for
Yeah.
something.
I
right?
wonder if we could ask Maureen and Leslie and Connie and Pat, for that matter, to see if we can get some more concrete input from each of the Bremerton districts. Are there 9 or 7? I always get mixed up.
Bremerton has 7 districts.
Yeah.
We
I
had
love-
9 at the last, and then we redistrict to 7.
Yeah, that's why I'm confused. Anyway, with 7 now, I would like to know as much as we can about how people feel, because people in the 7th, if they're in the 35th, or you know what I mean. Some of the 2nd is in the 23rd, or all of the 2nd is the 23rd, I guess now. Anyway, I guess what I'm thinking is that it would be nice to know how the people in the different Bremerton districts feel about where they currently are. And, I'm sure a lot of people would be very happy to be in one district as Bremerton, no matter where we put it, as long as it also connected them to some specific other places like Port Orchard with the foot ferry and all that stuff, for example.
The
Hey,
fact that Tara Simmons was elected from Tracyton and she was raised in Bremerton gave people in Bremerton, my area, I live on Manette, a sense that at least somebody knows we exist, because Rolfus and Hanson and Appleton were very north-centric, and people
Paulsbo and Bainbridge, yeah.
people don't even know that parts of Bremerton are part of the 23rd. So having a representative who's from our area is more helpful. Having Emily Randall live in West Bremerton but represent the 26th is hopeful for those people as well. The 35th are the ones that are out feeling unrepresented. So,
Well, and Tracyton, where Tara Simmons lives, is not in Bremerton. It's
right, it's Tracy.
so it's not even Bremerton.
But she's from Bremerton. She's got a history of Bremerton.
But
so
if we do the redistricting, so Bremerton's together, the option 1 would have Tara in a different district than Bremerton.
No,
well, she'd
Tracy
be in the
stays-
23rd. She's in the
She would
23rd.
still be in the 23rd, but
Yeah.
we're talking about option 1 has Bremerton with Port Orchard.
Right,
Right,
and
but
that would.
Tracyton is not Bremerton.
That's why I'm saying she would not represent Bremerton. She would represent
No, and
the
it doesn't
northern
hurt to have,
area of
a
the county.
representative in another district that understands Bremerton.
True,
Yeah.
true.
That's
Doesn't hurt,
true.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, the
Well-
representatives represent us all. They don't represent one geographic region, but sometimes it feels like
Yeah.
people on Bainbridge Island only see Bainbridge Island, and people in Paulsbo only see Paulsbo. And so
I
the
guess
people
my
on the
feeling
fringes
is,
aren't
yeah,
represented. That's
yeah,
all.
if you start putting all of Bremerton together, you're by definition going to get more people.
We
in
got
Bremerton.
41,000 people.
Yeah,
that's
Bremerton
huge.
and Port Orchard
41,000
will have
people.
more influence because
They have it too. Yeah,
there'll be a bigger chunk of
absolutely.
a redesigned 26th or whatever we do. So, yeah, I think this has potential, but yeah,
So what I'll do is I will send you links. It looks like we just need, I'll give you a link for my original option 1, and I'll
Mhm.
give you a link for this option 4 that we've been working on.
okay.
And you guys can get your own account in Dave's Redistricting. And when you click on my map, you will click on the little paintbrush, and
Mhm.
that'll say save it so you can edit it. And then you can
I'd like
save your
to-
own
I'd like
copy
to
and you can do
try
whatever you want.
doing that. Try
Okay.
playing around with it some more. We
Yeah.
might need a tutorial. So how do we get that?
June 2nd, there's a tutorial on.
I've signed up for that. So
Yep.
that's okay, good.
Perfect timing.
Okay.
Well, and there are the
question.
videos and stuff. I think the key thing to remember when you take, like Allison tonight deliberately gave the new option another number. So that you can save it and know, oh yes, it was Martha number 1 or whatever that we're looking at now, which is in between, So when you do go into Dave's, be sure and pay attention to that part where they tell you about giving your new thing a name before you save it.
But I agree. I agree with what you said before, Lenny. There really needs to be a meeting of the minds of Bremerton. Here we are, the majority of us are from North Kitsap. And that's not helpful for us to know what is best for Bremerton.
And I have
So
another
whatever
complication
can
that
be
I wanna-
done to get more people from Bremerton to pay attention and to give their opinion.
I have another complication that I was wondering plays into this in any way, and that is the within Kitsap County, the highest number of COVID patients and deaths were from Bremerton and Port Orchard or South
Right.
Kitsap.
That's where the
And
greatest
that-
number of,
Doesn't that indicate a lack of health care because we don't have enough representation to get, I mean, the hospital was just moved from Bremerton to Silverdale.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that plays in this in any
think-
way, shape, or form,
I
but I thought I'd
think-
bring it up.
I think it's the lower income that is in both of those areas.
Yep,
And so
exactly.
that's what,
Absolutely.
Yep, it's the
Yeah.
lower income family population has the higher COVID numbers because
Right.
they're the ones that are working, don't have access to healthcare or access to a clinic. So
And
and
I
then
looked
it's
at
many generations together.
more subsidized housing is also in Port Orchard and Bremerton.
Right.
Uh,
Well, and they can't isolate if they're if you're exposed and you're working, you can't isolate if you're
Right.
low income. I mean, it's quadruple whammy,
Yeah,
less access. So,
and
but-
I wasn't sure how that would fit into understanding the redistricting that
Yeah.
we're going to be taking part of because it's complicated, obviously.
So
exactly.
if we put Port Orchard and Bremerton together, we're going to give more of a voice to the lower income people.
Right.
That's a
That
great
sounds like a good
argument.
idea to me.
You also have Gig Harbor though, which is a high rent district. that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
part
but
of-
there's some rural areas in that Gig Harbor area too.
Gig Harbor, yeah, is kind of a funny fish.
It is.
You've got, yeah,
Um,
all of that Western Key Peninsula stuff is much more rural.
Right. But I would be real interested in, Maureen, if you and Leslie want to kind of confer and talk about different ways to get more input from people in Bremerton. Even your league members are really quite diverse. They're spread out, I mean, in terms geographically. The Bremerton members are in, like you said, all 3 districts.
Actually, now, I can tell you the people in the 35th are not happy.
Yeah, well, that we've heard from some of them.
But
Some
did
more
they-
than others.
Did they testify at the hearing the other night?
They did.
I don't remember if we had one person from the 35th. I
Irene
took
told me
notes
they did.
and I put down their district.
She testified. I actually campaigned for her.
Yeah, Allison Roeder is that how you say her name?
Yes, she's in the 35th and she testified.
And
But she
then
was the only one?
Donna Branch Gilby, isn't she in the 35th?
Yep.
And Irene
also in
Bowling.
Bremerton. So we had a couple and they were real, yeah. they
Irene
were real-
Bowling used to be a member of the unit and she opted out, but she's still connected and she's the person that wanted this recorded. She's planning on testifying. She's in the 35th. so
Great.
And she lives on Chico Way.
She does.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm just thinking that if you could have some informal conversations that the Bremerton unit kind of partnered with, you know, the
Well,
different.
the majority are, I'd say, maybe 2/3 are in the 23rd right now. And there's very few in the 26th because it's just one small part of downtown Bremerton that's been, you know, taken into the 26th. So.
Well, and in itself, that's kind of a disservice to downtown Bremerton to have just, if they were going to take part of it, they should have taken a bigger bite. You know?
Well, yeah, probably, but Emily Randall lives there and she was elected, so.
Well, and it's been an advantage and expanding that Bremerton up.
Yeah.
Putting the whole Bremerton population in one district, I think will make a huge difference.
I don't know what the people in the 23rd would say, especially, of course, some of the people in the 23rd are the ones that live close to Paulsbo and identify with Paulsbo, so they want to stay in the 23rd, but.
I have heard people. I have heard people from the 23rd say that they only listen to the people from Bainbridge.
Well, that's just.
The powerhouse is north. It's Kingston, Paulsbo, Bainbridge. That's
No,
where the people with power and influence come from. So yeah,
so these are the people in the 23rd that live in Bremerton who say that, you know, that area is the only area paid attention to.
Well, Leslie and I we both live close, pretty close together, and we're in the 23rd, but I don't know what Leslie has to say. Do you feel represented? Do you feel acknowledged?
She testified.
I know for a fact that a lot of Bremerton folks, if possible, would like to be in one district, 2, but get rid of the 3. So even looking at your map, Allison, maybe looking at if there's a way to make it 2 versus 3 districts.
Yeah.
Right. We're essentially saying the one we like takes the 35th out of Bremerton and we split. We make, well, we're looking at mostly the 26th.
Yeah.
But then there's that line where it's incorporated Bremerton versus the lived reality of being part of Bremerton. And
that's why I think we have to do some more playing around with the map.
Yeah.
And part of that is talking to the people. So Maureen,
look at
you guys are, I mean, it's some of you that have to maybe take on more of that, you know, you have to do more of that.
And unless we can do a listening session during your unit meeting one time, Maureen.
What I recommend is some people take on the task of organizing the feedback and somebody take on the task of learning Dave's redistricting and being able to implement that feedback in the map and then send me your map. But that'll help because then you can take screenshots or you can take those maps and you can use those as discussion points.
And for Juneteenth, I'm going to blow up, or I'm going to see how big I can have Allison's maps of Bremerton, in addition to the map of how Bremerton is divided now, and see if those people who come by the league's booth can give us input.
That would be great. It's a good idea, Susan.
Oh, you could have people pin themselves where their house is on the map, like the
and then photo. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. Very much. We have some marching orders, and Allison, if you want to just send me the slide deck, you know, I can send it out to everybody.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. See you tomorrow.
Bye.